All right, what's up? I'm back again. Damn, my subscriber count just keeps on dropping. All right, Mark Passio. Once my subscriber count goes to 0, can I then stop making videos? Can I, or am I still immoral? Even if I make like 10 videos every day, and then my subscriber count goes to 0, am I still immoral then? Am I still an immoral piece of whatever? Right? Oh my God. Where's Mark Passio anyway? I haven't seen him ever since he did that huge collection drive for his computer. Gotta get 5 super MacBooks. I'm not a capitalist, but send me money though. It's a donation. Whatever, bro. So we're gonna look at these megaliths, a couple of videos of this. I mean, you can see right here. I mean, the thing is huge. Supposedly cavemen built this, you know, they had no writing, no math. They didn't understand astrology. They didn't understand how the world worked. They were basically cavemen, right? Like what we depict as modern day cavemen, according to the mainstream consensus science view of history. Then cavemen built this, right? Look at, right? Cavemen carved these perfectly cut stones, right? Like 1,000, they moved and placed 1,000-ton stones, right? Beveled at perfect angles, 400-ton beveled blocks, right? Come on. Look how big these things. Wait, where's that guy? I can't see where the guy was at. You're standing next to it. Oh, you can see the people right there. I mean, look at this. It's like 3 of these things is like this length of like a city block. Let me guess, they just dragged them there. They just had a ton of people. Even though supposedly cavemen, agrarian societies can't even support that many people. But somehow they're cavemen. Here, where's that guy? Oh. Yeah. There's no Roman account explaining the process of how they moved these stones here, even though Romans took detailed notes of all their like building activities. But this is completely unexplained. Let me guess, just a bunch of dudes with ropes. Maybe they had some logs, right? They had some logs and ropes. And it doesn't explain how they knew geometry. If they were cavemen that didn't know math or how to write, how do they understand like this type of geometry? I mean, you can see they're like pretty much perfectly straight, perfectly fitted to the point where they don't even need mortar, and it's just sitting there and it can't be moved. Right. See, nobody knows how they got there. I mean, ridiculous. What? More sophisticated than the Greeks And the Phoenicians, oh, they must have just used sticks to carry them. Big sticks. They just slid big sticks in there. But I mean, they were cavemen, though. So why were they doing all this elaborate carving? I mean, I thought cavemen barely had enough time to, like, hunt a deer down and then, bonk a chick on the head, and they just didn't know what was going on. They had no clue that they even lived in the universe or lived in a world. All they knew was basically like animal instincts, and they were pre-forming, the ability to speak by going like ooga booga, and somebody figured out how to strike a match or hit a stick on the ground, or a rock on a stick to start a fire. Come on. Just come on. Damn, he said the Roman work was inferior. I didn't say it. Oh, what? That's from Indiana Jones, right? That's the place that's in Indiana Jones, right? The like early Christian. What, the same tool marks in China and Lebanon? What? The same type of style of building? What? Like there was some other civilization that went around the planet and taught everybody how to build these structures, like in South America, Central America, North America, Asia, Africa. Couldn't have happened. Never happened. Didn't happen. Cavemen did this. This was made by cavemen. No writing, no math. Didn't understand their place in the universe, but they were just doing this they just did this by accident. Damn, they had tools that could carve less than a third of a millimeter thin. Cavemen. Ooga booga. They were like, ooga booga, ooga booga. And then they started carving completely straight lines for like 10, 20 feet with some type of tool that made it go down to a third of a millimeter. In a completely straight line. Cavemen. Ooga booga. Right? They're wearing like loincloths and bear skins or whatever. And then they're just doing this on the side by accident with no writing, no math. You believe that? You believe that? A fraction of a millimeter. Cavemen, they must have did this by accident, right? It was just complete accident. There's no way that cavemen could have put this together. Because according to mainline history, these people were cavemen, right? The first written language wasn't even until Egypt or Sumeria, supposedly, right? And they didn't even know that until like the 1930s because they never really found Babylon. Until like the 30s, they thought that Egypt was the oldest civilization for a long time, and that Babylon was like just a made up thing. It's like Atlantis when the Greeks said, "Oh, the Greeks said Atlantis existed, and it was a civilization that was before theirs," and then the Romans built on top of this thing that was already there with their inferior technology from this civilization that built. I didn't say that. This is what the documentary say, right? And it's the same thing in Egypt. Like the Egyptians built over whoever originally built the Sphinx. It had a lion head, and then when they refurbished it thousands of years later, when the Egyptians that we would consider Egyptians refurbished it, they did an inferior job to the people that originally did it. And then you have reports from the Greeks saying that there was a previous civilization called Atlantis. That was a civilization of people that were on the ocean. And then we see these megalithic sites on every continent on the planet. And they don't teach you about this at school. And they act like you're a Looney Tunes if you even talk about it, because then they go straight to the alien shape-shifting Anunnaki gold mine stuff. No, it was probably humans. Most likely humans. Most likely made by humans. All it is just pushing the date back a lot further than the mainstream consensus historical narrative. That's all it's doing. It's not saying aliens. It's not saying superhumans from the Middle Earth. No. It's just simply saying that the timeline that you were taught in your mainstream, mainline history classes is completely made up. Completely. And that's why they don't teach you about this type of stuff in school. Who took a megalith class in school, in high school? Ancient megalith class, anybody? No, right? They just go back to like Rome, Greece, maybe. Teach you a little bit about Egyptians. This is all undocumented. These huge rocks that nobody could figure out how these people move them. This is all undocumented stuff. I mean, what were they even doing this for? Like, what were they even doing that for? If they were cavemen who could barely survive and they're just like hunting deer, right? They're like subsistence hunter-gatherers with with like family structures of like 10 to 30 people and wandering tribes, right? But then they did this though. But then they did this on in their free time, in between starving to death, freezing to death, hunting deer, right? Barely able to make a fire, right? But then they did this. Then they started quarrying 14-foot high, 10,000 or 1,000 ton stones, and then dragging them all around the countryside and stacking them up on top of each other. Yeah. Uh-huh. 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 Yeah. Yeah. This is all fake though, right? This is all fake. It's obviously fake. It's obvious that they were cavemen. Civilization did not start until like Greece or Rome, really. Oh, you mean the Younger Dryas period messed them up? When the ice caps came down and melted, flooding huge parts of the earth, and then also making other parts of the earth into deserts that used to be under like the ocean or under lakes, kind of like Salt Lake City used to be like an actual lake, but now it's not because the climate changed drastically during the Younger Dryas period, and then it was known, written down in almost every religious text and religious history text in the world that there was some type of giant weather cataclysm that wiped out the previous civilization, right? The Greeks have it, the Romans have it, the Christians have it, the Indians have that story. And look, I'm not doing ecumenism, but I'm just saying historically, every single culture has a story of this great cataclysm, great flood period that happened and came and took out the original civilization, and then they had to go back and rebuild, right? See, Stonehenge, same thing, right? Why were they why were cavemen concerned with astronomy, right? Think about it, right? How do they even know that there was a precession of the zodiac if it takes 2,600 years to even see that there is a precession of the zodiac fully, right? How'd they record that information if they were cavemen? How'd they do this if they were cavemen with no written or mathematical languages? Oh yeah, they did. That's how they did it. They just whipped people and they just whipped people. Yeah. Okay. Okay. So now we're gonna look at Coral Castle. What is Coral Castle, bro? We'll watch this since it's a news thing. I should be able to play this fully.
Coral Castle is a very well-known monument in the world. There are some people that have no idea about it. I mean, they live across the street and they say, what is that thing over there? This has been here almost 100 years in Homestead. This is very recent history, but since it's so impressive, it's very well known. This has been put right next to other monuments in the world like Stonehenge or Machu Picchu that create that same kind of energy that is so difficult to explain how this guy could do this all by himself, at night working, building, with nobody knowing, everybody trying to gossip and everybody trying to spy on him, but nobody ever saw him erecting the rocks or bringing them or quarry them out of the ground. So when people visited the castle, he always gave tours. That was his way of living. When he gave tours, people would say, oh my God, last week when I came, that moon wasn't here. How did he bring it? And people would gossip around and they would admire him. He was like a celebrity in his own time.
An echo from some ancient Stone Age is the work of Ed Leedskalnin, a 120-pound Superman. Using but the most primitive of tools, he handles huge 15-ton pieces of coral rock with the greatest of ease. This is his life work, building a great stone city that he hopes will stand for thousands of years.
He was an odd guy, but look at what he did. So everybody was like intrigued in admiring him from the distance. He was very social in the tours, but otherwise he was a hermit.
It's just amazing at what somebody can do when they put their mind to it too, you know. It's really amazing to come and see this part of Florida and the way the coral, you know, it all come out of the earth and just it's part of the earth of what the earth's made of, you know. And a lot of people don't, they look at this and they think, oh, it's just a rock, but I don't know. For me, it's different because I like the rocks, I like the mountains, I like everywhere I go, I end up getting rocks, you know.
Edward Leedskalnin, originally from Latvia, right next to Russia. He was born in 1887. He came to this country in 1912, the same year the Titanic went under. Just to place you in history, he ended up working in the coal mines for about 8 years. That's an awful job. Deteriorated his health. He was diagnosed with tuberculosis, but the belief was that fresh air and sunshine would cure you. That's why he ended up in Florida, and he erected the castles. Actually, he made 2 castles. This is the only one remaining because he brought all the pieces from the first castle to this one, so that alone is impressive.
there's stuff done here that nobody would ever have known of, or ever seen, or they don't know how he did it. Not only that, it's beautiful. He did it for his wife, for a woman he loved. It's kind of sweet too.
Well, Edward in his tours tells us the story of this woman that he loved. Her name was Agnes Coffs. She left him heartbroken. So he came to this country, and years later, he got enough money to erect a first castle in her honor. Tried to lure her here with the castle, but she never came. And her last letter, he says the story in the tours, that she was engaged to someone else. But behind that is the whole incredible and very impressive history of the castle.
All right, so that's like the basic story of it. We'll check in this video. We can see that it's going into these megalithic structure type things. Like, no one's saying it's aliens. No, like, serious people are saying it's aliens or... It's not aliens. It's not, some other thing. Just a different group of humans that existed before the flood. See, this is the type of stuff that he used. It's like some type of like generator, a hand crank generator that he made using like electromagnetism or something like that. You can watch the full documentary yourself, but basically this guy knew something. This guy knew something, right? See, they're talking about cymatics and how the Sumerians or Egyptians, whatever, might have knew about that. See, look, he's got a bunch of stuff there where it's like clues. It's like he left a bunch of like clues as to like how he did it and stuff. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's a huge mystery. At least, I mean, they kind of figured it out now, but they figured out how he was using that with the wheel thing. Oh no, that's not it either. Here we go. He's not going to say anything, so you can see how he had some type of flywheel that created electromagnetism by cranking the thing, and he's using geometric shapes in order to, and mathematical patterns in order to create electromagnetism in order to power the generators that he used. Right, so no serious people are saying, "Oh, it's aliens, panspermia." No, it was just humans and the timeline, the mainstream historical timeline for how long we've been here just is not accurate by thousands, maybe thousands or tens of thousands of years, possibly even. Because you got to look at when was the Younger Dryas period, right? Like, come on, this is real. This is really at Coral Castle. This isn't like some made up like fantasy thing. That's how a 120-pound guy was able to move all these stones by himself. But they're not going to teach you this at school, though. They're not going to teach you anything about this. You got to like dig into YouTube and dig into the back. Look at that. You can see it's a magnetic conductor. You can see the thing, and it uses geometric patterns. People like, you nuts, Square.Peg. You're crazy, man. You're crazy. Just because you never heard of it, that means I'm crazy, right? Right. The Younger Dryas occurred circa 12,900 to 11,700 years before present. Right. But it wasn't synchronized. See what I'm saying? It's like, oh, this happened a long time ago. Sudden global freeze. Sudden return to the Ice Age. And then after the Ice Age was over, then it melted. All the water melted, right? Was Salt Lake, Utah ever really underwater? Through geologic time, what is now Utah has been covered by oceans and inland seas as well as completely dry land. The elevation of the land surface has changed as well, ranging from sea level to over 2 miles above sea level. So yeah, right. How long ago was Utah covered in water? Approximately 32,000 years ago, and existing till about 14,000 years ago, right around the time of the Younger Dryas period. So all the freezing sucked up the water, right? And then when it melted at the end of the Younger Dryas period, it released all the water and changed the oceans, changed the lakes, and everything, right? Flooded some places, dehydrated other places, washed away like that's where the desert is now. The Sahara Desert used to be rainforest. It's because of the Younger Dryas period. Right? And then you can see And you look at Utah, right? Popular Three Sisters, right? You can see the striations and all that other stuff because it used to be underwater, right? Look at it. That's like seaweed, right? Like all that tumbleweed that used to be seaweed. See? Like you could completely, like, this is just like an underwater cave. You can see where the flows of water carved this out. This wasn't carved out by wind. You can see where the wind carves it. You can see, right? Used to be underwater. That's why it's all shaped like this, where it's like carved out. This used to be underwater. Utah used to be underwater, pretty much the whole West Coast, right? And that's what, and then if you go out there, like I went out there, and then I went to like this Native American shop where they were selling stuff on the side of the road or whatever, and they believe that it's like Lemuria, that their ancestors were Lemurian or whatever. I'm not saying that they were, but you know, the obviously places weren't called Utah. This place wasn't called Utah like 10,000 years ago or 5,000 years ago. You know what I'm saying? And so you had the Atlanteans, the Lemurians, probably the Tartarians, who knows, right? Now, I'm not saying it's true, but it's obvious that the mainline history is just completely wrong because cavemen didn't build this. What we would describe as a caveman, some guy in a hunter-gatherer tribe with around 10 to 30 people, and maybe they had a collection of tribes with a couple thousand people in it. No writing, no math, right? They didn't understand the universe, right? They thought this, when it was nighttime, that meant that God was like going to sleep or whatever, right? But then they built this. They just took all the time out of their day that they could have used hunting deer and buffalo or whatever to do this. Right? Yeah. Okay. I believe that. I definitely believe that. Not that they had some type of advanced technology that we just can't figure out how they used it. Not that, you know, parts of the world were underwater that are now not underwater, and parts that are now underwater weren't underwater. No, Younger Dryas didn't happen. Cavemen did this. All right, so I'm going to get out of here with that. Thanks for watching the video if you got this far. Otherwise, have a good day and peace.